in spirituality, if you see some saints like Buddha, Tulsidas ji, what they had done is that they had reached up to some stage of spirituality, a sort of poise and serenity, and then they started preaching this knowledge.
Okay.
There were some saints who used to say, like one of the dohas of Kabir Das ji was also, I have heard that he used to say that knowledge should be like running water. If you get it, you should give it to others too. It
Okay.
should not be stored. You should give it to others as much as you get. So
Okay.
what is correct way in the perspective of spirituality, because both of these two things tend to look contradictory. Some
Okay.
say that you have to attain a good sort of enlightenment, then you should preach. And some people say that knowledge is endless, and this way towards liberation is also endless. You need to give as much as you can.
Okay.
So what to do?
Okay.
Please guide.
The first thing is that there are some hypotheses that you have said here which are not absolutely correct. For instance, everybody who gets knowledge, okay, they don't need to preach. Just imagine somebody who is sitting in the Himalayas, okay, in a cave, and he gets enlightenment. Nobody even knows that he is there, okay. He's so preaching is something else, okay. Now, nobody who has got knowledge starts to preach by himself. It is not like that. When the society realizes that here is someone who is very special and they come to him for knowledge or they bow down to him for help, then he gives his help. But unasked for, nobody starts preaching. If you have realized the divine in the really the way. This is number one. Okay. Number two is that you remember last time we spoke about the levels. There is a sense level, there is a mind level, then there is also the spiritual level. But even Saransh, even in the in the spiritual level, there are many levels. It's not only one. Okay. For instance, okay, let me make it a little more specific. Level one, okay, I like to put it as levels. Okay. Level one is when we are in our ordinary consciousness. 90% of humanity, or even 99, you can say, are in the physical world thinking that the world is real. Okay. Taransh, you're following me? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, uh, they feel that the physical world is real and they are identified. If I ask you, who are you? You will tell me your name. Okay. And you think you are your body, your vital and your mind because you are not aware of your soul. Okay. So this is what you call ignorance, avidya. Okay. You do not know your real being. Okay. This is number one, level one. This is 90% of humanity is at that level. But there is a level two, when that soul within you, okay, comes out and due to past lives, development in past lives, you know that you are not the body, mind, life. The body, the life, and the mind are something given to you by nature. Okay, from your parents, you are getting it, and you are getting it. It is born in one time, and then it disappears also at the end of life. So, what remains? Your soul remains. So, those who have realized their soul, that happens when the purification of the mind or purification of the heart is there, then you realize. If you have a pure heart, you can realize the divine within yourself. Okay, there is a what is called the Chaitya Purusha. There is a divine element within you, deep in your heart. Okay, and that you realize, then you get devotion for the Lord. Right? Tulsi Das is a good example. Then all the other saints, that's what they get. They get love and devotion for the Lord. But they don't start preaching by themselves. Nobody who is really unasked, okay, no spiritual person who is really unasked goes about preaching. They don't, okay. But only when there is a demand from the public, when they realize that here is someone who is special and we should go to him and his name and fame spreads, then they demand, okay. Then naturally when they demand, he will help them. because he is well disposed. There is love for mankind also. Now take the case of Raman Maharshi. Okay, he did not want to preach to anybody. In fact, he wanted to go away up the hill and remain in the hill only. But he was forced to come down by the divine. He came down and remained in the ashram, and everybody used to come and bow down to him. And that's how the ashram started. Okay, the Raman Ashram in Tiruvannamalai in Tamil Nadu district. Okay, so nobody, no real yogi who has realized starts preaching. Second is what you said, that there is no end to the realization. That also is true. But preaching normally is not done in the Indian tradition without being asked. Okay? Because now tell me, if unasked I start preaching, is there not an element of egoism in that? There is an element of egoism. You think you are very great and you can give knowledge to others which they don't have. So that does not normally happen.
But sir, out of joy can we give, because we are experiencing that joy and if we want to spread it.
It does not happen like that. Okay? It does not happen like that. 90% of the time. But if you are asked, okay, if people come to you and bow down and say, please give us, then they give diksha and they take disciples and then they start. Okay? So, by themselves, it is very, very doubtful if it ever happens at all. For someone who is really spiritually realized soul, it does not happen. Okay? 90% of the time, people realize that here is someone very, very special, and then they come to him. And then his fame spreads, and then they give knowledge to whatever. But even the knowledge that they give, okay, if you are reading the Gita, na, you remember? So what does the Gita say? Gita says, never give knowledge to somebody who is not prepared for that. See, last time, if you remember, we discussed that because it is premature. He will not understand. You know, as I told you, I gave you 2 examples. It's like playing the violin in front of a bhass, in front of a buffalo. He will not appreciate. So, no spiritual leader gives unasked his knowledge to somebody who is not ready. Okay? In fact, very often in the ashram, in Aurobindo Ashram, when people used to come and tell Sri Aurobindo that I want to do this yoga and I want to do that yoga, Sri Aurobindo used to tell them very often that you are not ready yet. Do the karma yoga, purify yourself, make yourself fit for it, then you come. Okay? So that is usually what happens. Take the case of someone who is in the Himalayas, as I told you. Okay? In fact, the number of saints known in India, saints and jnanis, is very small. They become famous only when society recognizes their contributions and their greatness. But there are so many who go to the Himalayas, the forests and all that, okay? And they remain very content with that consciousness that they have. The eagerness to give others a knowledge for which they are not yet ready does not normally happen. But when you see that they are ready, okay, then there is definitely the help is given. Okay? But take the case of, having said all this, I'll give you the example of Ramakrishna. Okay? Ramakrishna, he could see that Vivekananda, whose name was Narendra, okay, his name was Narendra, and he was a college student. Narendra himself did not know that he had any spiritual possibility in him. But Ramakrishna is saying that he has got so much fantastic capacities and he used to shower him with love, okay, and ask him to come again and again. So it does happen when you see someone who is great and who has to do a great work in the physical world, then people like Ramakrishna, great realized souls, definitely try and give it to them who are ready. Okay? So it happens very rarely. But so many people realized that he was so great that they used to come to him. In fact, I can tell you, Vivekananda was not even interested to go to him.
Yes.
You know that, no? He did not even know. He used to fight with him all the time. Why are you giving me so much love? Okay. But afterwards he realized, and he realized his own greatness. But in Vivekananda's case, what happened was very interesting. As soon as he realized who he really was, he gave up his body at a very young age. In fact, he went and told his friend in a subtle body, he told him that I have spat out the body. The body is something that is a outer garment. It's like a dirty clothing. So you throw it away and you become the pure soul. So there's no contradiction. Though you have an idea that those who are realized, they pour their knowledge out by themselves. By themselves is very doubtful. I don't know from where you got that idea, but very doubtful by themselves.
Sir, but if an individual sees misery in the world, if he sees that the spiritual knowledge, it is needed to be embedded in the people. Okay. So for that aim, can't we start spreading it?
No.
With that.
Okay. What you're saying is very interesting. For instance, a spiritually realized man sees suffering, okay, but there are so many different types of help that you can give. Okay, you can give help at a very, very low level. You can give at a very high level. Okay, there are so many levels of help given. Okay, what was Mother Teresa doing? She was taking all these people suffering in the streets of Calcutta. And what was she doing? She was giving them food and clothing and a house to live in. Huh? You know that. But does that solve the problem of suffering in the world? You will see that that's a very temporary solution.
So that is why it is temporary, because we are providing something outward. But if they realize their misery, if they realize the very reason that why are they miserable, so that is going to happen through the spiritual knowledge that will spread.
Okay. But then then you must also have the idea of all the levels. Okay. You must have levels. As I told you just now, if the spiritual man, when he sees suffering, there is absolutely no doubt that he will give help, but not necessarily physical help. Okay? With his consciousness, he will try and create conditions for that miserable man. But there is another thing. Okay, if you are giving your help, it's a subtle help. Huh? It's not a physical help, it's a subtle help. Can the other man receive it? That's the whole question. There is a question of receptivity. Okay, there is a radio station which is broadcasting to everybody. Okay, there is a radio station broadcasting to everybody. Can you tune in? You can, but without tuning in, can you get that broadcast? You can't. So a spiritual man, what Saransh was asking, automatically what he said was absolutely correct. That is, the knowledge and the love and the power to heal is being broadcast. It goes out of him automatically. That is true. But are the others capable of receiving? That's the whole question. And no spiritual man forces his cure onto others. He gives as much as you can receive. Not only that, if you force your knowledge or your power on somebody else, it may even harm them. You can't give something to somebody who is not ready. It may even harm them. You know, in the ashram, in Aurobindo Ashram, little children were not allowed to go into the ashram because they are very sensitive and they are not yet ready to receive these vibrations, strong spiritual vibrations. They are not capable. It may harm them. Okay, so a spiritual man sees what the suffering man is capable of receiving, and then he helps. Okay, but tell me, there is another thing that you have to consider. Okay, a man who is a spiritual man who is helping, who is he going to help? Is he going to help whole mankind? He can help one person, he can help another person, he can help another person. So there is an individual solution, but there is also another solution, that is to help entire mankind. And entire mankind helping is a question of evolution. No? So you must realize that evolution is very much linked to the idea of the spiritual growth. See, before animals came on the earth, there was only matter, right? Only matter was there. But out of matter, there is life that comes out. Is that not greater than matter? Certainly, because there is a little bit of consciousness in the animal, right? First of all, it's only trees. Then afterwards, it becomes animals. Then it becomes men. So there is also an evolution. And as the evolution proceeds, the consciousness grows. This idea of evolution, you must have very firmly established in your mind, because that also is very much related with the spiritual life. Okay. So what you can do is you can try for an individual solution, but you can also try for a solution which helps all mankind. Now, what was Buddha doing? He was exactly he suggested to others that suffering can be ended if you realize the divine by silencing your mind. Okay, it is your mind and your vital which is creating all the problems. You are creating your own problems. You remember last time I told you that there is nobody. You are responsible purely yourself for what you are in a condition. Your condition is created by your own consciousness, nobody else. Okay, so you can cure yourself. So that knowledge sometimes is given to people, and also their help also is given. Okay. So it is true that when it is demanded or when it is seen, they do give help, but that help is general. Okay, it is not a preaching. Remember, preaching is talking in words, but if there is a demand, they do that. That is what Buddha did. He went about preaching everywhere because there was a demand for it. Unasked, nobody does that. But he was so concerned with suffering in the physical world, he, with intense concentration and sadhana, he managed to get the solution to the problem. The solution was your soul is trapped in your body, mind, life. It's a prison house. And when it is in a prison house, there is suffering. Anybody who is in a prison suffers. The soul is essentially divine, but it's not divine to start with. Don't remember. Your soul is essentially divine. Okay? Like that tree is in the seed. Essentially, the seed is a tree, but it is not yet the tree. Right? So your soul is divine, but it has a capacity to be divine. So when it comes out of the body, mind, life, it realizes, your consciousness realizes what you are. All right? So those who are ready, they are helped. Certainly they can be helped by the realized spiritual people. There's no doubt about it. But those who are not yet ready, you can help them. But it may not help them because they may not be they may not tuned to that help.
Sir, but many people are so ignorant that they do not know that spirituality is only the right way to end their misery. So at least we should give them that way, that there is something in your life which is beyond this petty issues in which you are living, because they are too ignorant of this fact too.
Yes, you are right, and that is the reason why your school is having these programs, so that they become aware at least that there is a spiritual solution to suffering. 90% of people in the physical world are not aware of that, and they take their suffering as natural and inevitable. But there is no inevitability in the suffering. There is no inevitability. You can, but the solution is so difficult. Sadhana is not easy, it's very difficult. Okay, we are built in such a way that is difficult. So what you are saying is right. Okay, so but there is a limit to what a human being can do. So you have to give a knowledge which is proportionate to his capacity to receive. That is the important thing. So many people have been there, but Buddha is helping people. Ramakrishna is helping people. Even in the Pondicherry Ashram, Mother and Son, they have been helping so many people. Sometimes you can receive and you will benefit. Sometimes you will not benefit because your consciousness is still dark and not illumined. So you may not have the capacity to do that. Okay. So it's like a athletics coach trying to make a lame man run the 100 meters. Okay. Okay, he can't. There's an inevitable limitation of capacity. So it's exactly the same way in the spiritual field also. So you have to give knowledge to people who are proportionately. You have to give the knowledge to those people, and that also if they are asked for. Nobody starts trying to, and even if you try to give someone some help, you are only solving the problem for one individual. And it's a two-way thing. You must remember this, okay? It's a two-way thing. The spiritual man will help. The guru helps the others. But are you receiving is a question. So the more you are capable of receiving, that means you are already evolved in consciousness from many, many previous lives, then you benefit. So the spiritual man's capacity is not that he is helping everybody indiscriminately, but he helps those who are, there is a general broadcasting, as I told you. Out of him goes love. Out of him goes knowledge. Okay, but you have to tune into that. So there is a natural flow out of him, but everybody else has to receive. Okay? That is called receptivity.
So, sir, to make people aware about this way, sir, can we take the first step forward to tell them?
That's exactly what your school is doing.
Yes.
That's exactly what your school is doing. That's why it's a very positive thing. Okay. Yes, certainly you must. But there's another thing also. Okay. Should you force this knowledge onto people? There, you see, you should never force something onto. The choice must be left to the person concerned. Freedom is very important. You know, I'll tell you, mother said to us, you know, that if a child does not want to study in school, do you force him to study? Like many, many parents in India or all over the world, they will force their children to sit down and study. Why are you not studying? You have to get good marks. Okay. But that is of no use. It does not help. You must be able to create conditions in which the student or the child wants to learn. But if a child does not want to learn, well, how do you approach the problem? Because he has got the right, the freedom not to struggle. Every man has got the right to decide what he wants to do. So suppose he doesn't want to study, you have to explain to him the consequences of what he is going to face. You will not be able to go into the market and buy a watch because you don't know the value, you don't know arithmetic, okay? You will remain ignorant if you don't know how to handle computer literacy, then you will suffer, others will. So you have to explain the consequences and leave it to the child. Okay, that's the thing. So forcing others and compulsory, that's called brainwashing. So spirituality should never be imposed on anybody, but guidance should be there. Okay, and if you see that the response of the child will tell you whether he is ready or not. Okay, you are asking questions, but there are many who are not even interested and they won't even attend these. They have the full right to do that. Okay, I was a teacher in the ashram school, and I know that not many, but sometimes children used to say, I don't have any faith in the divine. It's okay. So what do? You leave him to himself and you tell him to think about how there can be. Can you explain how there is so much of order and who is everything that is created in the world? There is a creator. Na? If there is a table, there is a carpenter who has created that. And there is the television set, somebody has invented and created it. Okay, a building is created by somebody. Who has created this huge universe with so much of logic and so much of order in it? So you have to sort of guide them to think a little more and try to understand that yes, there is some higher consciousness which has done this. But you can't force anybody to do it. They have to a discipline imposed on a child has not got much value. He should be encouraged to think about it and arrive at a conclusion by himself that this I should not do, this I should do. So a discipline imposed on oneself has got value. Guidance is necessary, but not imposition of your own ideas. That should not be there. Okay? And that is exactly what the spiritual man does. Everyone who is ready and everyone wants to benefit from his knowledge, they give.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, tell me.
Yes, sir, but you said if a saint which is sitting in the mountains of Himalayas, if
Yeah.
he is busy in his own sadhana and he's contented in that situation, so
Yes.
he need not come down and
Exactly.
do this, preach everyone. But sir, is there a selfishness there?
Yes. Yes.
Is
Yes.
it selfishness?
Yes. But can you blame him if nobody is coming to him? And he's so content with that consciousness of his enjoyment. Okay.
But sir, at least you should not come once and tell that there, make people aware about it.
Okay.
Then it should be on people
So that's what happens.
to decide.
It does happen, but there are people who don't feel that necessity. No?
Yes.
They don't feel that necessity. I gave you the example of Raman Maharshi. He was thinking of going to the hills and remaining there. Okay. But it so happened that he was asked to come down. The Divine Mother asked him, why are you going into the hills? You know, there's an incident, very interesting incident. He was walking up the hill to remain in that. It's called the Skanda Ashram, okay? Midway to the mountain. It's a beautiful hill in Tiruvannamalai. So he wanted going up. But there was an old lady with her legs, okay, barring the path. It's a small path, maybe 2 feet or so, and she was sitting and the legs. So he asked her, old lady, please remove your legs so that I can go and cross. Then she says, why do you want to go up? Go down and remain there at the foot of the hill. And so when he came down, naturally, people started collecting around him, and then the ashram came up by itself. It's not that he created the ashram, not at all. The people came to him, automatically it grew by itself. That is what usually happens. Okay? There are so many cases like that, you know. Neem Karoli Baba, you have heard of him?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Neem
Yes,
Karoli.
sir.
Yeah, same thing happened, okay? Like that, there are so many other cases, okay?
So, sir, a question on Swami Vivekananda only. There was once when he went to Chicago. So earlier people do not used to acknowledge him, and they do not used to understand him. So many a times, though, it so happened that when he used to give his sermon, many people used to leave that because they were Christians and they did not resonate with his teachings. They do not used to find it interesting. But then too, he continued his preaching, and then people started getting
I don't think what you're saying is absolutely correct. Okay, he was, because there were many who were attracted to him. Many were attracted to him, and so when they were coming and automatically asking for, he started giving the Vedanta philosophy. In that time, the Vedantic philosophy was not at all known in the West. His function in life was to spread Vedanta in the West. But you know the famous Chicago speech. He started with brothers and sisters of America, and there was clapping for 3 minutes non-stop. So here is a person who is coming from an unknown land and saying that you are all my brothers and sisters. Okay. It's a very famous example. And all the newspapers in America were howling with praise for him. Okay. So he was attracting many people also. As you say, not everybody. For instance, even today, there are priests who are in the Christian field. They don't want to have anything to do with Hinduism. That's true. But then you don't impose your Hinduism on others. Okay. This is what exactly in Hinduism you have this greatness that nothing is imposed on anybody. That's the reason why the Indian system, there are so many religions and we tolerate everybody. There is Sikhism, there is Vaishnavism, there is Shaivism, there is Buddhism. There are so many different. But do we ever clash? We don't. But many other religions, they do that preaching. Okay. It's called proselytizing. You have to approach the divine through Christ or through Allah. Okay. But this imposition should not be made. Then it becomes wrong. And you are allowed freedom. That's why in the Indian system, there is no imposition. Discover by yourself. And the way to the divine is not single one path. The divine being infinite, you can go to him by different infinite paths. That was the teaching of Ramakrishna. Every religion has got a path, and that path is valid for that particular person. Okay, you are built in a different way, your neighbor is built in a different way, somebody else is built in a different way. Why should everybody follow the same path? The divine is infinite, so each one is allowed full freedom to go along his path and his nature. Okay, no imposition of any sort. But this is only in our culture. Okay, this is in our culture. Nothing is imposed on you. You can argue your case. You can say that yes, there is this truth, there is truth. Even in yoga, there are so many different paths. No? Jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, karma yoga, okay, raja yoga, hatha yoga. Each one is allowed his own path. Discover the truth for yourself. Nothing need be taught to anybody. But if people come by themselves, naturally the one who is ready will impart his knowledge. But this is the knowledge and the preaching part. That's why the word preaching is not really appropriate in the Indian context. Okay, it's not. Nobody preaches. But when someone comes to him, it is advice and knowledge is given. It's not a preaching. Okay, you can use the word if you change the meaning of the word. But the real word in English is proselytize. Proselytizing is imposing your knowledge on others. In fact, that's how the conversions were done. Okay, they used to go and say, you have to accept Christ, you have to do this, you have to do that. That is where things go wrong.
So my question is that between level 1 and level 2, is there so what are the steps in this between level 1 and level 2?
Okay. No, so I didn't follow your question exactly. Can you repeat slowly?
So like in level 1, you said that there is ignorance for the soul, and we don't know that we have a soul, and we don't know about the soul. But in level 2, we get realization. So what are the steps for this?
Okay. So, you know you have only one life or you have many lives?
So many lives for the soul, but
Okay, no, so what happens is each time you have a life, okay, there is experience in the physical world, and that experience, you get the essence of that experience and it is absorbed in the soul. So the soul actually grows towards the divine. It is capable of divinity and it slowly grows. So with each life, you grow. And a time comes when the soul is sufficiently alert to grow more into the level 2. Otherwise, you are at level 1 only and many. In fact, you know what they say? They say that the human birth, okay, is before you come to a human birth, you have already had 1 lakh lives. Before you have, what is evolving in you? Which is your soul? The divine presence in everything. Okay?
So when we take rebirth, so that's when the realization comes, like so in the next life we'll be knowing more about level 2 life.
No, that's not a very correct idea. When you take a rebirth, you don't come to know.
Okay.
You don't come to know necessarily. You come to know only at the end of many lives when the soul is sufficiently mature. Otherwise, you don't know. Tell me, your age, you are now 16, 17?
No, sir, 12.
Okay. Are you capable of understanding rocket science? No. So there has to be a gradation, and you have to be fit for that. That comes through many lives. It's like your class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, class 5. Okay, and you have to be mature, and that comes through each life. Okay, life 1, life 2, life 3, life 4. Sometimes you come to a human birth. Before that, what were you? You were not always a human being. Okay, your soul is what develops. Okay.
So yeah, you mean that when the spirit matures, the soul matures, then so we know about the realization of the soul.
That's right. The soul has to mature enough through many lives. Okay, it suffers, it enjoys, it understands the reality of things, and then it realizes that it is not the outer body, life, and mind, but it is the soul. That comes after many lives. Okay, some others also lifted up their hands. So,
Sir, Sir, extending to what you said, my query was this only about the soul. All
Okay.
right. So, sir, in your first session itself and in this session also, you have talked about, in the first session, you were saying that the position of Atman is somewhere over here. And today also you're talking about its birth and rebirth. But in Gita itself, Shri Krishna ji, when he says in the second chapter, Nainam Chindanti Shastrani, Nainam Dahati Pavakaha, Na Chainam Kledayantyapu, Nishoshayatu Maruta.
Yes.
So, in that we say that weapons cannot shed the soul, nor the fire can burn it, water cannot wet it, and wind cannot dry it.
That's right.
And there are several adjectives also used for it. For example, omnipresent, silent, it's the
Okay.
stillness,
Okay.
it's steady, static, stationary.
Yes.
So then how do we see it as? Because how can it be contained in something? When it is omnipresent, then how can it be contained in a body? And how can we, because in Vedanta, sorry, not in Vedanta, but in Vedas also, it is said that it is like a...
Angush Matra Purusha.
Angushta Matra Purusha, and we also see it as a fire.
Yeah.
So how can we, how do we look at
Okay. 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 Let me explain this. Okay. Now, listen carefully. There is water essentially can take 3 levels. It can be solid ice, right? It can be water, flowing water. It can also be water vapor. Okay. So when it is water vapor, it can be impersonal and it can spread everywhere. Okay. So your soul, exactly the same way, you can think of it in this way. When it is immature, it is ice. It is.
How can we talk about its maturity and immaturity? It's something of which we cannot talk about. It's something which is totally silent. In Hindi we say achal. Then how can we talk about its maturity or immaturity?
Okay, okay.
It's being over here, it's being over there. How can we characterize it in this manner?
So you must have some very clear ideas, okay? So, does a stone have a divine presence in it? Tell me. It is there?
So what I think is that we cannot say that there is a divine presence inside it. It is the divine itself, because that is what has expanded itself, as we say.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I give an example to explain what I'm saying, for example, when we make a pot, right? When we make a pot, we take clay and we put water inside it.
Okay.
And we form it. We give it a shape.
Okay.
So similarly, we can say that the divine is there inside the water. For example, without water, we cannot give the mud shape of a pot. So similarly, we cannot say that there is something inside it, but the very thing because of which this existence is there.
Okay. You have to, okay, this will take a lot of explanation and a lot of thinking, then things will become clear to you, okay? You are talking of the pot, which is the Advaitic image of the pot, okay? That the pot itself contains the divine presence, but it is itself the divine, okay? That's what you are saying, okay? That's true. But that's why I'm trying to explain to you that the divine presence can take many different types of forms, okay? Now, I told you about ice, water, and water vapor. It's the same thing. Okay? So, your divine presence also can take a very, very gross form. At the lowest level, the divine is matter. But it is gross. It is like ice. Okay? But it does not know itself. It is forgotten. Okay? So, you must have the idea of involution and evolution. Okay? This is very necessary to understand the reality. You know what is involution? Okay. Now take a seed of a plant. Okay. Is the tree involved in it? Is the seed capable of evolving a tree?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right? Okay. But can you see the leaves and the flowers inside it? You can't.
Not at
You blow up the seed as much as you want. You will never see Leaves, fruits, flowers, bark, roots, you'll never see. But it is capable of that. Okay? So this is exactly what you have to understand. The divine presence is there in everything, but it has to be given the right conditions. Now take that seed and put it on the table. Okay? Will it ever become a tree? Never. But if you put it into the ground, give it water, look after it, see that the soil is fertile, then it will grow. It will grow. Exactly in the same way, the divine presence in you must be given the right conditions to grow. Now you're following me? Now, how does that right conditions come? It comes through many, many lives. Slowly it comes. Okay, so this is the involution. The divine has involved himself in that which is not the divine apparently. Okay, the tree has involved itself into the tree. Now you can ask why is it doing that, but that's another question. Okay, so this series of lives actually makes your seed grow into the tree. So your divine consciousness is there, but it is sleeping. It has the capacity to become divine. But it takes many, many lives to prepare the ground for it to evolve into a divine consciousness. When it becomes water vapor, then your question is it is there everywhere, it is silent, you said. But when it is ice, it is not everywhere. So apply the image of what I told you about the ice, water and water vapor. There is a growth, okay? It becomes subtler and more unfixed, okay? It becomes more and more flexible.
So, sir, aren't we talking about the dynamicity of the soul itself? Are we not talking about that it is changeable? It's changing. It has stages.
Who is the we?
Yeah.
Is it your body, mind, life, or is it the soul? The consciousness is the essential part of you. Okay, your body, mind, life comes and goes. They are like clothes. You are reading the Gita. You know the body, mind, life is like clothes. Old clothes are discarded and new clothes are put on. So they are not your real being. They are only clothes. The body, mind, life. You should never identify yourself with your body, mind, life. You must think that you are the divine deep in your heart. Okay, this is what is called the Chaitya Purusha. In English, Srimad has coined the word psychic being. So that's a Chaitya Purusha. It is fully conscious, but it also has to grow. First, it is in a sleeping condition, and then slowly through many lives, it starts realizing each life it gains a little bit, and finally it becomes capable of the realization of the divine. But it takes many lives for it to become capable of realizing the divine. So what you are speaking about, what the Gita is speaking about is the knowledge given to somebody who has realized his soul. And then when you realize that, it's a consciousness which is absolutely silent, immobile, sarvagatam, as you said, it is there everywhere, omnipresent. You are not, your soul now is limited to your body, mind, life. Nah? It's in your body. And that's why it is imprisoned and you don't know it. But when the soul comes out of your body, mind, you feel yourself to be separate from body and life. You see the body outside yourself. Okay? Then you realize that you are the pure consciousness and not the body, mind. When you think you are body, mind and life, then you are in ignorance. But when you realize that you are the pure soul, you have vidya, you have knowledge. Okay? That takes a long time to happen. Okay?
Yes.
You have to think about it and you have to be very, very clear. When you say I, which part are you talking about? 90% of the time we are talking only about clothes. Your body, your mind and your title. We are not even conscious of our soul within us. Nah?
Trinali.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rangada. Rangada, I think Trinali wants to know that the soul in the rock, where is the presence of the soul? She says the rock itself is the divine. He has become the rock.
Okay.
But is the soul behind it, inside it? What? That's what she wants to know. Am I right, Trinali?
Yes, if we can know about that as well.
See, when we speak of the divine presence in the stone, the divine presence does not know itself. The stone does not know that it is divine. Okay, even the divine presence has gone to sleep. Okay, okay. Let me put it another way, then you'll understand. The divine creates the universe, right? But when he creates the universe, okay, it's an adventure that he is taking. Okay, that's what you call the Leela. Okay, the divine is playing with himself. What he does is he creates conditions of darkness. He hides in his own darkness which he has created, and he wants to escape from there. It's a adventure. It's a Leela. Okay, they're very difficult to explain because if I say one thing, then I have to say something else to support it. Then again, some other question will come up. So it takes a long time to gather all the ideas, put them together. Then there is a explanation. But if I say that the divine is wanting an adventure, okay, and he creates conditions, the opposite conditions of his own consciousness, he creates unconsciousness and he plunges himself into it and comes out. It is, you will wonder why the hell should he do that? Okay. Why should he do that at all? When he has got all knowledge, all ananda, why should he do that? So you can explain that in some way, in this way, okay? You have heard of German magician? What was his name? I forget now. What he would do is, he would blindfold himself, others would blindfold him, then they would put handcuffs on his hands, and then they'd put him into a trunk, and then lock the trunk and throw it into the sea. Okay? And he would come out, escape from there. Okay? Such a difficult thing he would do. What is the name of that magician? I've forgotten the name now. I keep forgetting names now. Okay? So this is what the divine is doing. Okay? Now tell me, to understand why the divine should do that. Okay, so when you have a difficulty and when you solve the difficulty, is there not a little bit of ananda there?
Yes.
There is ananda. So the divine wants to experience that ananda. Okay. Okay. But this also is not satisfactory because you will say, but he already has got ananda, why should he? Okay, so this is a question which cannot be answered satisfactorily at the mental level. Okay, only when you go to the, as I said, level 2, we explained level 1, level 2, na? So when you are in the level 2, that means you are identified with your soul, your consciousness, and not your body, mind, life. Then it becomes obvious. Okay, and then you realize. So this is what he is doing, and when you conquer a difficulty, there is a pleasure, there is a success, and that success gives you a certain delight. Okay, so this is the delight that the divine wants also. But as I said, you can always challenge the theory because the divine has got everything already. Why don't you do that? This is very difficult to understand unless you think of it in this way. If a human being faces a problem and solves the problem, he gets ananda. So extend this basic principle of conquering difficulties and getting ananda to the divine. Okay. So this is what he's doing. So when he plunges into the opposite of himself, okay, he becomes present even in the stone. He has forgotten that he is divine. Okay, he has forgotten that he is divine. This is the basic. There's an involution and then there's an evolution. The involution is when the divine plunges himself into the opposite of himself. The tree has got embedded in the seed. Okay, but the capacity of the seed to again go back to where it came from and become fully developed is there. But it takes a long time. Evolution is a very slow process. Okay, and the evolution can be individual. It can also be in all nature. It can be universal. The individual evolution is what we call yoga. And the evolution in the universe is what we normally understand by evolution. But this evolution that we speak about in science is only of the outer nature, of the biological evolution. But in spirituality, the evolution is of consciousness. From a state of sleep, it is slowly rising and coming to a wakefulness. So these ideas one by one, there has to be some clarity. And slowly, as we go on discussing many questions, you must not forget the answers. You must remember the answers, and then slowly, things start becoming clear. But to have clarity at the first level only, because one question answered will give another rise to another question. It goes on like that. Okay. So hopefully, at the end of several sessions, you will have some clarity on these issues. Okay. There's an involution and an evolution. Don't forget that. You are essentially divine, but you have to realize your essentiality.
What is after realization? Like, so we know that there is something in us, like there is a soul. But then what is level 3?
Okay. I can understand what you're saying. When you realize that you are the divine, what have you gained? You have gained that you are infinite. You have gained that you have got power, that you have got ananda. It is itself a very, very satisfactory condition. Okay. But after that also, you can help others. You can take the evolution forward. Then I'll have to come to strip those ideas. Okay. There are many people who are very content with Saransh said about selfishness. Okay. So it is selfishness in a certain way, but it's a very great thing that yogi has done. Na? He has realized himself who he is. So he can be very content with that. But there are other things possible. What did Buddha do? Did he remain satisfied with his own condition? No. He helped others. Okay. Ramakrishna also did the same thing by helping others. Now, helping others can be done in several ways. Okay. You can help individuals, but you can also help the mankind. One day, when these ideas are clearer in your mind, we will discuss also how you can help mankind. Okay, we will do that. You can act in such a way that everybody will benefit. Okay? That is a very difficult subject. We will come to that later on. See, we spoke of evolution, and we said that evolution can be individual, but it can also be evolutionary. Universal. There is a universal evolution and an individual evolution. Now, in the universal evolution, matter has become life. Okay, life has become universal, and from all animals, okay, you get the next stage is man. Man has come. Okay, has he not benefited? So, when there is a universal evolution, there is a vast benefit to everybody. So, suppose I am capable of taking the evolution from a material world to an animal world, and from the animal to the mental world, and from the mental to the spiritual, and from the spiritual I go on to the next level. Will it not benefit everybody? So that is what can be done also. Okay. So you make the evolution go faster. Then everybody benefits. So that's the ultimate.
So, sir, level 1 when we don't know, and so then for that, then when our soul gets mature, we realize that there is a soul, there is something.
Okay.
And then in level 3, we help the society help the mankind by speeding up the evolution.
Okay, that level 3 is a very complicated question. Okay, even when you are at level 2, when you are in the spiritual field, okay, what happens is, if you have read the Gita, you will know that there is Purusha and there is Prakriti. Is this idea, you have come across the idea of Purusha and Prakriti? No. So we will discuss that one day. Okay, you have consciousness in you, na? You have also power to a certain extent. You have capacity. So there are two things in you. There is a consciousness and there is power. And they are at our level. They are two different things. Arya, are you listening? So suppose I have consciousness and I have the knowledge of how to make a car. Okay. But do I have the power to do it? I may not have the will and the power.
Yes, sir.
But I may be a very rich man and I can get labor and I can buy the materials and I can create a car. I have the power, but I don't have the knowledge, right? I don't have the knowledge how to do it. I don't have the technical knowledge. So, Chit and Shakti are two different things. Okay. So, at the second level, okay, level 1, you are not even conscious about Chit and Shakti and all these things. But at level 2, you realize that there is Chit, you are consciousness, but you don't seem to have any power. Okay? And they are two different things. One is Purusha, one is Prakriti. But when you go to level 3, you have both. Okay? So one day I'll explain that more clearly to you.
Okay, sir.
All right?
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, my question was that only. I think my second part of the question was left to be answered, sir. It was that before we start giving that knowledge, is it should we attain a certain state? There should be certain eligibility,
Yes.
or if we are seeing that someone wants to know, we should just give
That's right.
as much as we know.
Yeah.
This was
But
something which
there also there are, you see, when you are in school, okay, what we are giving is the mental knowledge. Nah? So mental knowledge helps, but spiritual knowledge is something else. The spiritual knowledge is given normally when you are ready and you ask for it, then it is given to you. But that can also be given in words and it can also be given by influence and vibrations.
No, sir, I want to ask the eligibility of the speaker who is giving. Should he be eligible to a certain state, or as much as he has got to know, he has acquired, he has contemplated, he can just give that
So
to the seekers?
Okay. So when you are at level 1, okay, when you are not, you have only mental knowledge, okay, you can give only that much. So when you are at level 2, you can also give the ideas, but you have to also have the power to by vibrations, help that person in a subtle way. So your question about the eligibility, certainly everybody who gives knowledge at whatever level it be, he has to be eligible. That is what is meant by a guru. A guru is one who is eligible to take disciples. So everybody sometimes refuses to be a guru. Okay. I'll tell you an interesting story. Okay. There is somebody who went to a person and said that I have got a very bad habit. Please help me. He said, what is that habit? I am going on smoking and I want to get rid of my smoking. So that man said, come back to me in 1 week's time. You have heard of this story? Come back to me in 1 week's time and I'll give you the solution. So after 1 week, he came back and he said, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. He gave me the solution. So he said, but why did you ask me to come back after 1 week? He says, because I also had the habit and I managed to get rid of it. And now I know the solution to it. So he became eligible. Okay. So eligible means you have experienced the difficulty and you know the path to how to do it. Okay. That's why we have coaches in athletics. We have coaches in games. We have teachers in schools. At that level, they are eligible. At the spiritual level, eligibility is spiritual development.
So sir, if we get some clarity in spiritual level, then
Yes.
can we start propagating it, or there should be?
It depends on whether you are asked or not. Again, you are asking about that propagating. It should not be something which are imposing on anyone.
No, that though I have understood.
Yeah.
I've understood. My just motive is to make people aware that they should know about it. Rest to it is their freedom.
Okay.
To choose.
Okay. You are saying we should make people aware that there is something.
Yes, but the irony is that people do not even know about this way.
Okay. But then is that not that you are trying to give something to people for whom they are not ready? If you tell a materialist that there is God, what will he tell you? Go jump in the lake. He will tell you. Okay. He will tell you that it doesn't exist. What are you trying to tell me? Okay. So giving knowledge to people who are not ready for it. Okay. Exactly again that same idea of the playing the violin or playing the bean in front of the buffalo. Okay.
But if I see some sort of possibility in that person to grasp, to understand, and to
Okay.
evolve through
Okay.
that, then should I initiate or not?
No, so that again it comes to imposition, no? You are imposing yourself on someone who you think is ready. Why do you want to impose? Okay, I'll tell you something interesting. There is a lady who asked me, okay, that I'm trying to convince one person with whom I had an argument that his way of thinking is wrong and what I am thinking is right. Okay, so I had to tell her, why do you want him to come to your idea? In fact, you don't even know whether your idea is right or wrong. Okay, so when can you get absolute certitude of what you are saying? Saransh, is it not true that so many religions are there and they've had some experience, but all of them are different and they're quarreling among themselves? So, this certitude is something which is a very, very tricky thing. Okay, you can be sure of at many, many levels. Okay, there is the Jnana Yoga and the Bhakti Yoga, they are quarreling among themselves all the time. They say Jnana is superior to Bhakti. Okay, and Karma Yoga is something very, very low. So there's so many different ways of seeing the reality. But what about Advaita, Vishishta Advaita and Bheda Bheda? They're all different, but they have all had one glimpse of the divine, one aspect of the divine. So again, we come back to that basic thing. Unless you are asked for, okay, ask for help, and you think that you are eligible to give that help, you can give that help. But never force your ideas onto someone who you think is ready. Unless he asks, there is no necessity to do that. Because everybody has to evolve at his own pace, and only when he realizes himself, that knowledge has got value. A knowledge which is given to someone from when he is not ready has no value at all.
So, Rangada, I just want to ask this, that like a parent, this is what Saransh is saying.
Yeah.
So, a parent poses a child to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And then from there, a child could identify so that the child can understand his interest
Yes.
and then progress in that particular aspect,
Yes.
not in all. And then there are some children who will not take any one of those things to which they are exposed. So that category is also there.
Yes.
So similarly, if like Saransh, what he's saying is probably supposing someone has, I will not say has gone to the second stage, we are not even near that, but feels that yes, this is the way to the second stage, and I have some understanding, and when people around me are talking, they probably do not have this much clarity. I may not have understood everything, but they've not reached this, and I am feeling very happy to know all this.
Okay.
Right? Someday I will reach the truth.
Okay.
So, if he has some children or some people around him who he feels can understand, so
Okay.
it's not to impose, but simply to just share his opinion or his views. So won't it be just like a parent is exposing a child to different activities so that he picks up its interest and grows in that interest?
Yes.
Maybe then in that case, one of them, two of them, or some of them might come across this path too, and may have that opening where
Yes.
they are able to invite that grace and take them to this way.
Yes.
Saransh, is that what you are asking?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
even I felt the same, Rangada.
Yeah.
That's what Saransh is trying to say, Rangada, is that if there is somebody in his atmosphere, somebody he knows who he feels is open, and he doesn't want him to miss it by default. He doesn't want to impose spirituality on that person. He just wants to inform him about it.
Yeah.
And then if he chooses, he will continue. If he doesn't, he will let him be. But at least he can tell him about it so he doesn't miss it by default.
Exactly.
This is what Saransh is.
But Saransh
Yes,
is going on talking of eligibility. Okay, so don't forget that. Always teachers and parents should guide, okay, but never impose. So there certainly guidance has to be there. Okay? But what is the guarantee that that guidance is absolutely right? Okay, so that is a question that also that has to be seen to. There are parents should allow the child to grow by himself, and they have to create conditions in which the child decides himself what to do. By the way, that is a very interesting movie, okay, that Three Idiots. Okay, this was precisely the question that was discussed there. When a child wants to do something, don't impose yourself on him and don't say, no, no, you should become a doctor. No, no, you should become this. No, no, you should become that. Okay? That's what normally 90% of parents do. They insist on what their children want to be. But you should give full freedom to the child to develop himself according to the lines of his nature. His nature will be something quite different from your nature. And if he wants guidance, certainly you give it. But there are general principles which can be certainly given for guidance. There's no doubt about that. Okay? Certainly it can be guided. And for instance, if a child is doing something wrong, then from your own level you can say that, no, this is not the right thing. You should do it in this way, and then explain. But there's a difference between imposing and guiding. This is also what happens with children. Suppose a child has done something wrong and you give him a slap and tell him that this is wrong and you should not do that. 90% of the time he is not going to listen to you, because he has got his own personality and he is feeling hurt. But if you take him gently by the hand and tell him the reason what he has done is not right, what are the consequences, and what could be done in the right way, and you do it with, tell him with love and affection, he is going to understand you and try to execute what you are saying. So he will accept what you are saying when it is done in the right way. Okay? So the way, the guidance also should be conveyed in the most acceptable terms, even to the child. Guidance should certainly be there. But imposition of guidance becomes wrong. And guidance which is telling the child what to do in the right way, okay, and leave the child to discover himself, that is the right way. There are so many complications and so many different grades.
Yes, Arya, you're saying something? Yes, ma'am. I had a small question regarding this. Is it compulsory to first know the full knowledge about like everything and then pass it on to others, or what we hear we can pass it on, like with our liberation stays their liberation?
Again, we come back to the same idea. If you are approached, okay, you don't pass it on to others without being asked. Okay, it's not necessary. But when someone asks you, I want clarity on this question, then very humbly you can say, as much as I know, it is like this. Okay. So you can when approached. But without being approached, there is no need at all to tell anything to anybody. There's no need at all. Each one has to grow himself. When a knowledge, I told you just now, when a knowledge is given to somebody who is not ready for it, it has no value. So when he realizes himself, then it has got tremendous value. So he should be left to develop on his own, and each one's development is at different levels and different rates and different speed which you come to know. So, of course, suppose now we are having a discussion. So, whatever mental knowledge we have gathered, we are passing on to you. Okay. So, that is because we have been asked to do that. But when you are not asked, you mustn't think that you know more than the other person and you give him that knowledge. It's not necessary. We are talking of spiritual knowledge. We are not talking of education, because in school, when you go, a teacher is giving you, whether you are asked or not, the teacher is giving you knowledge. Nah? But that is mental knowledge. I'm talking about the spiritual knowledge. So mental knowledge, yes, it does help. For instance, how to build a car, engineering course, medical science course, these are being told to you without whether you are asking or not. But there is also another aspect. You are yourself selecting that subject. You want to be a doctor, you want to be, so you have come to that of your own will, by your own choice, you have come to that. So when you do that, then naturally it has to be given. But we are speaking of spiritual knowledge. Mental knowledge, fine. That's what schools are meant for. Schools, colleges, universities, that's what it's meant for. There's a higher knowledge and a lower knowledge. No? There is Paravidya and there is Aparavidya. Yeah. The Paravidya is the spiritual knowledge of subtle truths. The Aparavidya is the lower knowledge of the physical world. They are quite different fields. Okay?
Okay, so next turn we take rebirth, right?
Okay, we'll
Right.
do rebirth.
Right, rebirth. Okay.
And I will give you a hint about Purusha and Prakriti and you can think about it. Okay, so, okay then. Goodbye, everybody in Pondicherry.
Thank you so much, Rangada. Thank you for addressing the
Thank you, sir.
children's questions. Thank you so much.